right, so while we're waiting for this to get moving, so I'll just introduce myself and we can chat a little bit for 2 minutes. I am actually going to attempt, so if you see me holding my hand like this, I'm going to attempt to record all of the lecture on my Apple Watch. We'll see whether that works. I don't think that's going to work, but we'll see. But what I will do is my information will come up on some cards, right? And I will have the presentation and some auxiliary material in a Dropbox link that if you email me, I can send it to you and you can download it, okay? It'll be a zip file and it'll have like Dolby Atmos stuff in it plus the actual presentation. And if this records correct, I'll try to put up a transcript of it, all right? So, because I know like everybody really always wants that stuff, and so I'm trying to do that. I didn't have time to make the QR code. That's why you have to email me. I apologize. But I came close. But ran into time differences. So what you were listening to, just so you can kind of get an idea of who I am, so I own a company called Fundamental Sounds. I also work with, I work as the audio production, or the assistant professor of sound recording technology at Texas A&M University, Kingsville, down south of Corpus Christi. So yes, I am very much south. And that was the jazz band there, and I've released all of the jazz department CDs, but that is a student band with playing a student composition. So it's pretty cool. I wanted to play that because one, it's neat, and two, again, it sounds like it's video game music. I don't know why. Just like as we were doing video game streams, we were doing Smash Brothers tournaments. I make my kids do live streams, and we were playing that in the background because instead of calling it the like a Smash Brothers tournament, we call it the Jazz Smash. So we listen to all the jazz music. So anyway, all right, we're at 1:30, and here we go. We're gonna tap to record. Look at that. This may work. Okay. If not, I'm sure this will be on YouTube. Hi, YouTube. And hopefully none of this will get anybody in trouble when I play music. Okay, so today so again, you are at the Unlocking Dolby Atmos Background and Tools. Dolby Atmos is the new up-and-coming thing. I'll be honest, one of the reasons why I want to do this is because it's the only interesting thing that has come out of audio in a really long time. Like it's actually, like I am super ready for this because it gives me something completely new to experiment with, because this is all brand new territory. Granted, it has been out almost 10 years now, actually 12 years. It came out in 2012. But people really didn't get excited about it until about 5 years ago. And so we really have a lot of unknowns. Like there are no like ways to do things, okay? There are ways, but there are no the ways to do things. So it's really kind of cool. All right, so this is my information. I'll put this back up at the end, but I, again, am Fundamental Sounds. I also am the assistant professor of sound recording technology at Texas A&M University, Kingsville. You can get me at jonathan@fundamentalsounds.com. Adam here knows that you can email me whenever, and I will answer you as best I can. And I'm really like anything. You want me to listen to a mix? I'll listen to a mix, right? I'm here to help. That's why I love coming to MAGFest, is because I love teaching people stuff and I love helping people out. So go ahead. If you are interested in listening to any of the artists, go on the website. You can find them and go to Spotify and all of that's jazz, and you can listen to stuff. All right. So enough of this. Let's go on to what we're going to cover. So today we are going to do sort of a Dolby Atmos 101. Some of the things that we will not be able to do today, unfortunately, is listen to it, right? Because we have exactly 2 speakers, and those 2 speakers are in mono, so it doesn't really matter, okay? However, what you can do is, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how you can start experimenting with this and you can start listening to it, okay? 1 second. I have to get my prop. Okay, here we go. So We're going to talk about what Dolby Atmos is and a little bit of history and background and kind of why it's exciting. Then we're going to talk about the tools, and then we're going to talk about some techniques that I'm, and this is the big word here, experimenting with, because there are no ways at this point. Okay? And so there's a lot of experimentation going on, and that's what's really cool about this, right? There isn't like, hey, this is the way, like for instance, in stereo, we have ways to record in stereo. We have specific procedures, especially if you're a classical musician. We have specific arrays that you assign, you put up and you assign to your speakers, okay? We don't have that in Dolby Atmos yet. It's all just this open thing. In fact, people are just making up arrays. Like they're just making them up and seeing whether they stick or not. So it's super exciting. I do have to disclaimer this, okay? This is a way, not the way, okay? I make this disclaimer all the time. I want to give you the foundational principles so that you can make stuff up if you need to, okay? Because again, this is all just out there. But even like there was a really excellent panel in this room last night on mixing for animation. And again, that was their way of doing it. If anybody at that panel? All right, cool. So like that was a really great panel, and they showed you the ways, their workflow to do it. But again, it is a way, not necessarily the way, right? When I looked at it, I was like, well, why did they do that? I wouldn't have done that. But it doesn't matter because it all ended up at the same thing. So first we start with the what. And now we need to actually define what immersive audio or what Dolby Atmos is, okay? So Dolby Atmos is a part of a larger term called immersive audio. And immersive audio is a method, is an intent, not a method, okay? So it's like an umbrella term for a whole bunch of different stuff. Basically what they're trying to do is they're trying to immerse you in sound. So if we're in a video game for immersive sound with video games, that's so that you can hear the environment around you and you can actually get immersed in the game, right? This became really big when people were working on VR games. I don't necessarily know is VR still a really cool game thing that a lot of people do? Yeah. Okay, excellent. I don't have the money for it, but I did try that like Apple goggly thing, and that was really cool, but it was super expensive, so I didn't bother. But so basically what we're doing is we're taking surround sound, because surround sound is actually kind of an immersive audio also. We're taking surround sound and we're adding height to it. So we're adding the azimuth or the upper part of our audio, which really changes the game. Here are some examples of immersive audio. So we have surround sound, binaural audio, pure research, Sony 360, Ambisonic, RO3D, DTS, and MPEG-H, and Dolby Atmos. Frankly, at the moment, the only two things that people care a whit about is Dolby Atmos and, in turn, spatial audio. Okay, Google and Meta are trying to make a push for their own thing, and Pro Tools just released in their very latest update a AI plugin that I have not experimented with. I would recommend not using AI plugins until you understand what you're doing and you understand what your intent is, and then use the AI as a tool. We have to be very careful in audio about AI. This is just sort of like a soapbox thing, not just because I'm old, but we have to be careful of AI because we don't want mediocrity to sink in, because that's actually what killed some of the other, hold on a second, what's going on? I do not know who that is, but somebody just called me. So we are, it's something that actually killed surround sound for music. So believe it or not, surround sound was a thing in music, but it just died because of the mediocrity. So here's the history. Past attempts. We have two types of attempts of immersive audio. We have binaural audio and we have multi-channel audio. Okay? Now, let me just make sure. So binaural audio, believe it or not, was invented in 1881. Okay? And it was used in World War I to try to figure out where planes were when they were flying in. They used it to triangulate planes. And so, but it didn't really move forward until 1970. But what we'll find out is there are reasons why the past immersive didn't work out. And one of the reasons for binaural audio was people didn't really like using headphones. I know that's like crazy now, like nobody has speakers now, but like, you know, people didn't want to use headphones, and that is the only way you can listen to binaural sounds. So if you want to listen to binaural sounds, there are some examples. I think one of them is going to come up in a minute. But basically, if you go on YouTube, and I didn't do this because I don't want this polluting my YouTube algorithm so that when I go in class and I type something in, something weird shows up. But like if you go to ASMR videos, that's where you're going to start hearing some binaural stuff. Like the typical one is doing the haircut. Okay, like you'll set up a binaural rig and you'll use scissors and you'll go around the rig. And if you put headphones on, it'll sound like somebody's cutting around your head. It's super creepy, right? I mean, some people really enjoy it. It's super creepy. Okay, so that was one of those things. That was sort of our first foray into immersive audio, was binaural audio. Then you had multi-channel speaker-based audio. So in 1940, we had what was called quadraphonic sound, and quadraphonic sound was 4 speakers. So they would surround you with 4 speakers. And 1940 was when people started doing it. Pink Floyd used it in one of their albums in 1967. And then we had surround sound. Surround sound was developed in 1987. But didn't become popular until 1992. Surround sound is 5.1, which means there are 3 speakers in front of you, 2 behind you, and the 0.1 is a subwoofer. Okay, the subwoofer is called an LFE, stands for a low frequency emitter. Music is not supposed to go there. Okay, it does now, but it was never supposed to go there. It was supposed to be like like being able to feel the explosion in your chair kind of thing. It was the Arnold Schwarzenegger punching somebody. That was what the LFE was for, okay? So all of those things existed, and they've existed for a very long time. Like surround sound got better, right? Surround sound went from 5.1 to 7.1, right? And to 9.1 and 12.1 and as many speakers as you want, 0.1. Okay? That's what they were doing to try to make it, again, more and more and more immersive. But they both of these had their issues. All right? So the problem with our history of immersive audio is the delivery method and shovelware. Okay? I figure everybody understands what shovelware is. So the delivery method for the issue with surround sound and binaural is, well, for surround sound, it has to be listened to on speakers in a room with the decoder with the particular setup. Has to be, okay? Otherwise, you do not get the experience that you were intended to get. So in a controlled environment like a movie theater, where they built it for the sole purpose of doing this, it's very effective. So surround sound was very effective in watching movies. But I mean, let's be honest. Now, maybe because you're all here at an immersive panel, how many of you here actually have a surround sound setup at home? Okay, so you guys have a lot of surround sound, right? I will not be a person who raises his hands. Okay, I do not have a surround sound. I tried once, and then I was just like, I don't have a room that's rectangle enough. I don't have, it's just not worth it, right? And again, binaural was headphones only. What you're looking at there, even though I can't see it, I'm assuming it's a head, right? A mannequin head is right up there. Okay, that's Fritz. Fritz is a Neumann microphone. Fritz is an actual dude. That's a mannequin of his head, and the microphones are in its ears. And so you can take that head and you can stick it in front or in an ensemble, in front of an ensemble, or even a band. Hey, look at that, Pearl Jam. Whether you like them or not, binaural, that's a binaural album released in 2000. I listened to it. I bought it just for you guys, so there you go. I didn't bring it. I should have been like, I actually bought it. I didn't listen to it on streaming just because I didn't know what the streaming was going to do to it. And it's weird. it just sounds weird because it sounds like you're in the recording studio with Pearl Jam, which is kind of cool, I guess, but at the same time, it's very different than what like an actual produced stereo album would feel like. Yes, it's immersive, but it's also just weird, okay? Because again, one of those things about being, how many of you go to concerts and listen to music? Good, lots of people do. That's fantastic. So we're used to hearing music in what way? Where is the music coming from? From the front, right? Because we're in front of the band. So it's really weird when you step in the band, right? Because it's cool, but it's not how we listen to real music in the real world. So it becomes actually almost less immersive because you're not being immersed in the experience of the music, you're being immersed into a situation that you may not be familiar with. Now, musicians can be they think it's awesome because it's like we're actually used to sitting in the band, right? So like if I play in a jazz band, I'm used to like everybody coming from the front, right? Like, or not from the front, but like from reflections, like because I'm behind the band. So hearing stuff being in it can feel interesting. But in general, it pulls people out. Now, here's the thing. All of these quote-unquote failed. They exist, but they failed specifically for music because of this. We feel bad about E.T., okay? I actually have this framed in my office to remind me not to suck. Not the picture, like an actual thing I got off eBay, a destroyed copy of it. I look up at it and go, yep, don't suck. Okay, so what the problem was, because when I started in audio, that was in the late 90s, mid to late 90s, and this was a thing, like people were mixing for Dolby surround sound. And the problem is everybody was mixing for the format and not mixing for the project. So things that were conceived in stereo, like projects that were conceived as a stereo mix were being forced into surround sound. So we're going to talk about this a little later when we talk about things that you can do in immersive. But one of those things now that people are complaining about is quote unquote the toilet bowl effect. So a lot of immersive audio that you play on Apple Music or whatever, when you close your eyes, you'll feel like the music is like spinning above your head and you're about to be like ejected into the toilet bowl, like it just spins. And that's because people, they're playing with the format, but maybe almost, just because you can doesn't mean you should kind of thing. Too many spinning things makes people seasick, and that's kind of what happened. Like people would joke that like, I'm gonna get a surround sound recording, and it's like all they do is they have like a clave spinning around your head or something, right? Like a snare drum coming from over there, and it was just weird for music. People didn't do it, didn't think of it in the right way. Some of the other things that we do, if you remember, or maybe you've heard that they use an AI tool to create not only new Beatles music, right, but they used it to remix some of the old Beatles tunes into immersive spatial audio. That's fine, right? I mean, it's okay, but when you think about it, the Beatles created that music to be in what format? In mono. Most of the Beatles records were conceived in mono. So if you get a stereo Beatles record and you take one of your headphones out, you may not hear any voices because the voices are on one channel and then the instruments are on the other. Okay, and so there are some weird shenanigans going on when they tried to force it into stereo. So it was conceived in mono, so we should probably listen to it in mono because people make decisions via their project because of where it's going, right? Like if you know you're going to be mixing an immersive album when you compose it, or when you do a video game, or when you do any kind of movie, you are going to make decisions knowing the final format, right? So it's really hard. So we have to be careful because what people were doing in the mid-90s is they were taking all of the stereo albums and they're like, let's just make them in surround sound. And so they just made stereo albums into surround sound, and it was just really weird, right? And it just never worked out. And it killed the music format. So besides delivery, everybody was listening to stuff going, well, this is dumb. This doesn't sound very good. And so they just stopped. So now you can't really find it. It was DVD audio. You bought a a DVD that had your album in it, put it in your DVD player, and it would play your surround mix. And you just don't see a lot of it now. So now we have Dolby Atmos. Dolby Atmos has effectively won the immersive war. Okay, we can talk about it. Maybe they haven't yet. I don't know. But Apple jumped on board. And once Apple jumped on board and they made these things, okay, and they made, these are AirPod Maxes. Yes, I own a pair of these because I do this. You will have to also. I know. And they're not very good. But they're the really, literally, some of the only way you can listen to what Apple does. So because spatial audio, which we'll talk about in a second, is actually based off of Atmos, it became this huge thing, right? And everybody now is pushing for Atmos mixes in their music. So Dolby Atmos is this. It's a channel and object-based format, right? So remember, surround sound was a speaker-based format or a channel-based format. You had 5 channels and your music went into one of those channels or in between said channels, but it was static, okay? Dolby Atmos has one of those. It's called a bed, and it's static. The bed is 10 channels. It's 7.1.2, meaning there's 7 surround channels, 1 LFE, and 2 overheads, 2 height speakers. That is constant. It is a bed. It does not move. It's for ambiance. It's for movies where you want room tone. It just sits there. It's static. But what makes Dolby Atmos really cool is it has 118 dynamic objects. Dynamic objects mean they can move. And not only can they move, they're assigned. So that means that you can tell them to move in particular ways depending on how the person is actually listening to the music. Right? Listening on headphones, it does one thing. Listening on speakers does another thing. All of those things happen in the Dolby Atmos renderer. And that is how Dolby Atmos has solved delivery. Okay, so again, Apple Spatial is not Dolby Atmos, but it is based on it, so I consider them relatively similar. When you start really experimenting with this, you will find out that Apple Spatial Audio actually does slightly weird things. Like it creates its own ambiance and it does its own things that you actually have to listen to hear. And I'll show you how you will do that. So what's cool about Atmos is they've solved the delivery problem. You want to listen on speakers and you've got minimum is 5.1.4, so that's 10 speakers in your room. Go ahead. Minimum's
5.1.2.
Oh, is it really? On the standard that I read, they had it at 0.4, but 0.2.
Yeah, but for consumer delivery, the minimum is 5.1.2.
There we go. I stand corrected. 5.1.2. Minimum speaker for music production is 7.1.4. Okay, but the recommended, which we're going to see, is 9.1.4. So if you want to mix on speakers, you're looking at, if I do the math right, 13 speakers, which is very expensive. Okay, so a lot of people are defaulting to 7.1.4 if you want to mix on speakers. But what's cool is you can have it on speakers, but you can also have it stereo on only 2 speakers. Or you can have it go on headphones in binaural. Or you can have it go to Apple Spatial. Or whatever you want to call it. Dolby Atmos on headphones for Amazon Music, or Tidal, or even Blu-ray disc. So now we have addressed every single way someone can consume audio. Yes, I do notice that Spotify is not up there. They're holding firm. They're not doing anything quite yet. But odds are at some point they will offer Dolby Atmos also. Right? Netflix has Dolby Atmos. Pretty much, I mean, I don't know, does Apple TV does. I don't watch a lot of Amazon Video. Do they have Dolby Atmos too?
They do, but you have to pay for the app free play.
Okay, well, that's going to cut that out for me. So we're done with that. Disney Plus has it. So everybody's sort of going to this thing, this Atmos thing, and you can do, you know, it's the delivery is much better than it was before. And that's what's so awesome about this. And what makes me super excited is because I can create music that people can listen to in multiple different ways, and everybody gets an experience. Now, we'll get to my technique at the end on how I'm conceiving of this in my head. My conception is more of a enhanced stereo at this point. I'm not doing anything that is, I don't want someone who's listening to the stereo mix to feel left out. That's just how I'm feeling at the moment. But I want someone who listens to the immersive mix to feel like they got something extra, right? That it is better. So I'm trying to balance that. I'm not doing anything specific like, again, spinning things around people's heads or doing stuff. Like there's a demo in Pro Tools that we use to show students that just like has stuff like zipping back and forth and going this way and all this stuff, and it makes the faders fly up and down on our control surface, and everybody's like, whoa, this is so cool. But when you actually listen to it, you're kind of like, oh my God, please make it stop, right? Now, maybe it's just because I'm sensitive to that stuff because I've been listening to music for so long and I'm an audio professional, but it makes me, again, like a little seasick when things move that quick. So again, streaming has been great for this, and we have solved our delivery problem. So even if you don't have a pair of AirPod Maxes or AirPod Pros or I'm assuming AirPods do it too. I don't own a pair of AirPods. And I guess the Beats probably do it too, and all of those things. If you don't own them, you will put on regular headphones and you will get a binaural mix, which is basically almost the same thing. It's another version of that immersive audio. So depending on what you do, if you turn it off, you can go into Apple Music and turn off spatial audio. And then you just get stereo. And it sounds like a good stereo mix. So it's pretty amazing how you can just float in between everything and it works. So that's what makes Dolby Atmos so exciting to me and why I'm willing to start embracing it when I do recording sessions and thinking about it when I do recording sessions. So now we have the tools. This is really the meat and potatoes of this, so please ask questions if anything feels like it goes above your head a little bit, okay? Because we might get into the weeds a little bit. So this is the workflow of an Atmos production. So you have a DAW, which is a digital audio workstation for those who don't know the acronym, okay? I didn't want to write digital audio workstation, so it's just a DAW, a DAW. And this is where you record your audio in and where you do all of the mixing, okay? Once you have done that, you have to send all 128 channels of Dolby Atmos to a renderer. This is where your mix and all of your panning decisions and all of your effects that you've done get rendered into a file that can then be interpreted by the codec, the Dolby Atmos codec. So you must have a Dolby Atmos renderer, okay? This converts your mix for monitoring and delivery. Now, the next thing you need is the Dolby Atmos renderer will send channels out to a monitoring system. So, if you are going to play Dolby's game, which is you must mix on speakers, then you're going to have an interface that outputs the amount of D to A conversion, so digital audio or digital to analog conversion to your speakers as you need for your setup. But you may also just want to monitor on headphones, which a lot of music mixers are doing, is they're just monitoring on headphones. Because I read a statistics, so take this with a grain of salt because it came from the internet, and we know how good the internet is at statistics. But like 95% of people listen to music on headphones now. It's like most people don't even have speakers to listen to them on. So do you need speakers? I don't know, okay? So you'll need a monitoring system. So if we look at the DAW, these four at the moment, but there are probably more coming, have actually built-in renderers for free. So if you use Logic Pro, obviously, because they want to make everybody make spatial music. In fact, with Apple Music, if you make a spatial audio tune, you will actually jump the line as far as playlists. Like you will have your music pushed in front of more people because they really want people to embrace spatial audio. So if you do that, 100%, it'll get more views. So Logic Pro has it built in. Pro Tools also has it built in. Studio One has it built in, and Cubase has it built in. So all of them have a built-in renderer, which means you don't necessarily have to buy the external renderer. Okay? And many more will come. And what this means is you would set up a project that has a bus that has the number of channels you want. So if we're mixing for music, we would probably want a 7.1.4 bus. And then that would get, all of those channels get sent to our renderer, the internal renderer, and it interprets those channels and gives us your mix. Okay, and allows us to either monitor on headphones or speakers or both, right? So then we ask ourselves, well, what about our options for renderers? If you don't want to use the built-in ones. So again, we have built-in renderers, but they do have limitations. Okay, so for instance, this may not be true today because I honestly forgot to look. Okay, I haven't opened Logic in like 5 months, so I didn't open it. But when last time I opened it, Logic only went up to 7.1.4. So if you wanted to do 9.1.4, that was not an option. Okay, the Pro Tools one for a very long time would only go up to 7.1.2, and it would not go higher. They just fixed that. So that's up to 9.1.4. However, there are things that you cannot do in the internal renderers. You cannot monitor, well, Studio One you can do this, but the other ones you cannot. You can't monitor loudness, and you can't produce the files that you need to send, let's say, an album to go be burned onto a Blu-ray disc. You can't use an album assembler program. So basically, it's only for monitoring. It doesn't really work if you're trying to produce the tracks so much. Now, some people are making it work, and it is free, so have at it, okay? The next one we have is the Dolby Atmos renderer. This is $299 from Dolby, okay? It hurts when you buy it, trust me, okay? It hurts. But they have other things that work with it, like a Dolby Atmos panner plugin. They have a album, what do we call it? An album assembler that helps you assemble both the Atmos album and at the same time a stereo album so that you can make sure that they are equivalent and you can monitor between them. You can also go up to much higher speaker channels, and you can monitor loudness and do limiting and some basic mastering to it. Because that's another thing, by the way, that we haven't figured out yet is how to master Dolby Atmos. Yes. So, the last one is from Fiedler Audio. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's Dolby Atmos Composer. I also have this one, right? They actually have a free version called Dolby Atmos Composer Essentials, and it gives you 7.1.4, but the other one gives you everything you need. And it's cheaper than the Dolby Atmos renderer, and it is sanctioned by Dolby Atmos. Dolby was like, yes, go ahead, do it. So they did it. And it's another way of getting into it. And I have an example of it. Hopefully we'll be able to see it. So this is what the Dolby Atmos renderer looks like. So on the left-hand side of the screen, you will see all of your objects and all of your bed. And then on the, like right next to it, is the all of your levels, and then right next to that you can see sort of an amalgam of your objects and where they sit in the in the room, the virtual room that you've made. Okay. You can also do what are called re-renders, which means that as you're listening to something, let's say in 7.1.4, you can also be sending audio out to your headphones to listen to a binaural mix. So all you have to do is hit a button on your monitor controller, and you can listen to them at the same time, and they are synced together, right? So there's a lot of monitoring controls. Here's the Fiedler Atmos Composer, and it does the same thing. You see on the left side, you have all of your, well, actually, on the left side, you have it uses a secondary plugin to route your audio to it. And then all of your objects are in the middle, and then all of your routing is on the right side. So, but it basically does the exact same thing, okay? Yes?
Does it crash as much as Pro Tools or no?
Are you using Pro Tools in Mac or Windows? In Mac? I haven't had the crashing problem, but no, I haven't had either crash. So I haven't been like hitting it for 24 hours a day. So maybe it would. So besides those renders, we have some plugins and apps that are very helpful for this. Okay. So the first one is the Dolby Atmos Panner. This works with the Dolby Atmos renderer. This is free. And it helps you pan things where they need to go and automate the panning and create your objects. Again, don't get too dangerous with it. Don't spin things around. And then you have your Dolby Atmos assembler. This is the album assembler. So this actually gives you the control of mastering for Atmos. You can also create, like if you wanted to create an album that was a gapless album, you can do that on this. So this gives you the ability to limit and make sure that your mastering is at the right level. That's one thing that's in flux right now. So again, if you're producing a CD, you can be as loud as you want. If you're producing stuff for streaming, you can be loud at, like, I don't want to get into loudness stuff, but like -14, -12 LUFS, right? Well, with Atmos right now, it's -18. Why it's different, don't know. It just is, right? Right now it's -18. Now that's not a standard. Like no one came out and said, hey, make it -18. It's just like every time I audition stuff, that's what it turns out to be. So when I measure it, that's what it always is. And I've talked to a bunch of people in the industry and they're like, yeah, like one person made it -16, but most people are just, like they're just pushing it in different ways because we don't know how having 9 channels of audio affects you in a room. Right? Like how loud will that get? How bad will it be? So people are sticking around -18. So this allows you to make sure that your album is put together in a good way. Okay. Next, these are from Audio Movers. Anybody know the brand Audio Movers? So Audio Movers is out. They're owned. I think they're partially owned by Abbey Road now. But they created a program called Listen To, which was sort of during the COVID era, the best way you could do any kind of remote work with people. I use it a lot. But now they've created some tools. One's called the binaural renderer for Apple Music. And so what this does, because spatial audio is different, right? And the only way you could hear what spatial audio was to send your stuff to Apple Music, have it published, and then listen to it later. And that's not good. And so Audio Movers decided, hey, wait, we're going to make a plugin that you can route your Atmos, so your 7.1.4, to that plugin, and it on a bus in Pro Tools or Logic, and you can monitor that, and it will give you what your sing will sound like in spatial audio for Apple Music. So that is actually super, and it's super helpful, and it's not very expensive. Then the last one that I use a ton is called Audio Movers Omnibus. Omnibus is a digital patch bay that is a fake patch bay. It connects all of your different devices together. Okay, I'm using it right now. So I have stuff coming in from from Reaper, but 2 different projects. They're going into Omnibus, being split out and being sent to this jack here. Okay, so I have different things happening. I can show you that. But I use this a lot because I can route different types of audio to the things that they need. Like the headphones will get the binaural render, and the speakers will get the 7.1.4. Okay, so I can send it all at the same time and not have to worry about routing within Dolby Atmos. That's the software side of things. So you need a DAW, you need a renderer, and you need and that's basically it, but some of these plugins are helpful, okay? If you buy a renderer or use like the Fiedler Essential renderer, you can use any DAW you want. Like we're gonna see something in a minute that is the Reaper that we're gonna use, because there's a project I want everybody to look at. So I have to use the renderer, so I bought the renderer. But if you wanna use Pro Tools or if you wanna use Logic, all that stuff is built in. Finally, we have our hardware, okay? So hardware for music, I'm looking at this for music. You have speakers and you have microphones. How many of you here are classical musicians that do classical recording? Okay, so we got a couple people. If you're doing classical recording and you're like set on doing bed-based audio, you're going to need a lot of microphones. Like typically one microphone for every speaker. Okay, and I'm going to show you an example of that. But if you do object-based stuff, like if you're doing pop music, it's just all the same stuff, right? You record a guitar, that's your object. You don't need anything special microphones or arrays. But you may need speakers. So for speakers, our, again, it's not the minimum, as I was just told, but for music, the minimum that Dolby wants people to mix in is 7.1.4. They will say that if you have a very small room, 5.1.4 or whatever, but they want this. They actually want you to do 9.1.4. But I don't know a lot of people who have this because it's really expensive, okay? And if you do speakers, if you're going to use speakers, you're going to have to then have an audio interface that has enough digital to audio conversion, or sorry, digital to analog conversion that can go to all of your speakers. It also needs to have ganged monitor controls, which means when you turn your volume up and down, all the speakers go up and down at the same time, right? You can't be individually changing the volume for that. And you must have possibly EQ and delay in order to make it work in your room, depending on how you use it. Yes, sir?
Can I ask, why is 9.1.4 so much more expensive than 7.1.4?
Just because those two extra speakers. It depends on the speakers that I mean, both of them are expensive. Like if you're looking at a Genelec system, which a lot of people buy, those are, I mean, you're going to spend 50 grand just for speakers. But like the iLouds, Sweetwater sells iLouds. They're about 5 grand for a 7.1.4. So then you'd have to buy 2 more speakers, so it'd be like 5.5 grand. So it's not so much more. But then again, you also then need though a digital audio. You also need an interface that's going to handle 13 channels out, which that can be tough. So here are some examples. I personally use in my system Metric Halo, so I have 2 Metric Halo boxes. But I did at one point, and again, I'm not like sponsored, and I'm not recommending this stuff. Like, just don't go run out and do this because I told you to, because I didn't tell you to. Officially not telling you to do this. There's Audient makes a interface called the Aurea, which has all of the things that you need, and it's not terribly expensive. I mean, well, in air quotes, it's like 3 grand, but it has 16 out, and it can do everything you need to do. So those are some of the things that you have to think about, like what's my audio interface? Now, if you're going to use headphones, all of this is moot. You don't need the interface. You can just do this through your computer, okay? For our monitors being our speakers, you're going to want monitors that are generally of the same brand. You want them to stay the same. You don't have to, but generally you want the monitors to have the same tonal signature, right? You want them all to be basically the same. The output capability is what's most important. So you're surrounding yourself with these microphones, okay? And there are 2 ways to do it, which we'll talk about in a second. But the things behind you have to be just as loud. The speakers behind you have to be able to produce sound just as loud as the speakers in front of you at your mix position. So they generally all have to be the same capability. So if you have like speakers in the front that can go really loud, but your speakers in the back can't go really loud, then you have to not make the ones in the front as loud as they can go, right? It's like the weakest link. And so that means the speakers might have to be closer to you, right? You may have to be like in a little cocoon of speakers as opposed to having them in the corners of your room. It kind of all depends on what your room looks like. This is one of the things that in that zip file that if you want, you email me, I'll send it to you. There's the DARDT tool, which is the Dolby Atmos room something tool. All right, and what it does is it helps you pick your speakers and it helps you pick all of your room dimensions, and it's something that you can do to be Atmos certified if you want. But you can find that on the Dolby Atmos website too. It's just a free tool. So you need a lot of speakers. These are the iLouds. A lot of people like these because they're cheap. So go ahead. And then these are the 2 different types of setup. You have a equidistant setup and an orthogonal setup. So orthogonal, it means it's in all of the corners of your room. If you do an orthogonal setup, that means you're going to have delay and EQ on all of your speakers to make sure they sound the same at the listen position. If you do an equidistant setup, you don't need that because they are all the same distance away from you, right? So that's when you're sort of like sitting in a sphere of speakers. So at school, that is what we plan on building, is an equidistant system. So the student will sit in the speakers, and that's when it'll happen, right? We won't be able to have more than maybe one or two people listening at the same time. And then finally, if you want to do headphones, this is what you're going to do. Right? If you want Apple Spatial, or you want to listen to what Apple does, you're going to buy AirPods. But you don't have to. You could buy that plug-in, and you could get open back headphones. The ones I personally like are HD 600s or HD 650s. They're not super expensive. Go with the HD 600s, buy them used on eBay, and have somebody 3D print the little things that always break on them, and you'll be fine. Okay? But if you use headphones, which a lot of people will do, some people that I know don't ever monitor on speakers ever. Like, they don't even listen to their music on speakers. So if you want to risk it and do that, just go ahead and just do the headphone route. And then you can eliminate a lot of the setup, okay, and a lot of the expense. And then if you find out that you really think this is cool, then you can kind of move up as things go, right? One big thing that we have a problem with, and I'm going to do this super quick so that I can actually show you a mix, or not a mix, but show you how it's set up, is listening to references. So, like, if you want to listen to what something sounds like on speakers, you can't do that easily. It's actually kind of stupid. Like, the way people did it before very, very recently was you bought an Apple TV and you hooked it up to a home theater system, and that home theater system fed your speakers, and then you went on the Apple TV and hit Apple Music so you could listen to what was going on. All right? Just so you know, because we're not going to see these, but the file that Dolby Atmos creates that you send to Apple Music or Spotify or whatever through your aggregator contains every aspect of your mix. So if that file ever gets out into the real world, people will have the audio files, they'll have all your panning information, they will have everything. And that means that it is almost impossible to get one of those files to audition from a mixer. Like, it's state secrets. You can't have it, no one wants it to give it to you, so you're basically having to monitor off of an Apple TV. Now, just very recently, if you're a Mac user, I have no idea how to do this if you're a Windows user, so God bless, and go forth. But in Tahoe, the latest version, they finally gave us a speaker layout of 9.1.4 or 7.1.4. So before, you couldn't even send audio out of your laptop. So you couldn't put Apple Music on and send it out your interface. That was not a thing. You couldn't do it. You can now finally do it, so good for Apple, yay. Okay, so what I do is I bring things in through that system, and I use Omnibus to send it to my different systems. Now, of course, you could always just listen to Apple Music on headphones, specifically on AirPods, so there's your $500 entry fee into spatial audio. But again, there is one hardware thing you can do. So here we have the Apple TV Plus, a home theater system that will cost you, it's a JBL SDP55. It will cost you $5,000, okay, brand new. On Reverb, they're going for like $2.5. Or you can buy this thing called the Arvis 16 HD. They have a cheaper one that just uses Dante, but if you don't have Dante, then you're SOL, okay? But this Arvis is like it's like $4,000 or $5,000, and I don't even know how to buy it. Like, I contacted them and they haven't emailed me back. So, like, there are no dealers. Like, you have to go through their website, and there's no shop. Like, you have to learn more, and then we'll contact you when we're ready to give it to you. So it's really hard. Referencing stuff is really hard. Okay. Now, let's skip past a little stuff here. Again, you can look at this when you see it. But for the technique, all right, there's two schools of thought. We have bed-based audio and object-based audio. And I want to show you a bed-based audio project. It is not my project. It is a project that you can all freely download to experiment with, but I highly recommend doing it. So bed-based is where generally one microphone is for one speaker. This is a very old school way of thinking about things, okay? So we put up this massive array and we capture it all at once, and then each microphone is assigned to a speaker. And then you listen to it and it sounds whatever, okay? It sounds great. The guy who really is pushing this forward is Professor Lee, and he did a project called the 3D Mark 0, or Mark O, I don't know what it stands for. But, well, actually I do. 3D Microphone Array Recording Comparison. There you go. And what he did was he put, and that's when you get if you take a picture of it now, or if you get the zip file, that's the direct link to this project so you can download it. Don't do it here because it's like 9 gigabytes and it'll take you forever. But this is what he did. Look at this. That's like crazy. There's 50 microphones on that array. So he made every array that you could possibly think of and recorded one thing. Well, he recorded 6 things or something, but one thing at a time. A string quartet, a string trio, an a cappella group. All of these people were in front of this array, and it's all time aligned. So when you put it in the Reaper project, you can solo between every single mic array. So you can actually hear what they sound like. This is beyond important. Because when I first got into this, I was thinking, like, what am I going to do? Like, I have to spend, like, if I want quality classical music, I'm going to be buying a Sennheiser, which is like $1,500 a microphone, and I need 11 of them? I mean, that's crazy. And then, like, what microphones do you use? Well, you have to pick a thing and go with it and see if it works, you know? And it's like, well, what if it doesn't work? What am I going to do with all 11 grand of my microphones, right? So this was really, really, really helpful. Okay, so let me show you this real quick. All right, so this is the Mark O project. This, let's see if I can bring up, this is our Dolby Atmos renderer. Okay, we're going to be listening in stereo because we're in mono, so there's not much we can do here. Yes? Oh, no, you don't see it? What's up there? Okay, hold on. I know how to fix this. We're going to stop extending. Boom. You see it now?
Choose to mirror of the menu.
I did choose to mirror. Choose content. Entire screen. Start mirroring. Boom. There we go. I'm an audio professional. I can do this. All right, so here's our Reaper project. I don't know why it didn't expand out, but whatever. These are all of the buses that have every single microphone, and here are all the audio files. You'll see a bunch of offline ones because I didn't have time to download it, and 9 gigabytes was going to take me like 3 hours on the Wi-Fi, so here we go. But I did do the string quartet. So what you can do is you go up here, and we can just hit start. Let's make sure we're actually hearing it, which we're not. Hold on. Oh, thank you. So what we do is we mute all the tracks, and in Reaper, we can solo a muted track, which is really helpful. So now, you're not actually hearing Atmos. This is nothing. Okay, you can see my Atmos renderer is getting the audio, and it's being sent to left-right because I'm monitoring in stereo because we can't listen in Atmos. But watch what I can do. If I hold Option and Command, in real time, we're listening to the change. Do you hear a difference? Listen to the violins. The viola specifically. See how the viola got much brighter? Now it's deeper sounding. L2Q is the guy who just won a bunch of Grammys for immersive audio. This is his system. This is much less directional. This is very immersively whatever, okay? He uses all omnis, so it's just going to be like whatever, okay? But this is what you can do. And you can go and download this, set this up. You send all of these things to your renderer. Now, it's in Reaper, so unless you redo this in a different platform, you're going to have to use a renderer. But you can then send it out to and listen to it on headphones, right? And hear which one you wanted to do. It's really cool. Now, really quick, if we go back to my presentation, I don't want to do that. Can you see that? Is that working? Okay. So, I want to do object-based mixing. The reason why is objects are dynamic, which means when I create my mixes, I want them to fold down to different mixes. I want them to be different for everything that we're listening to. And dynamic is what's the most important in Atmos. So how do I do this as a classical person? As a pop musician or as a game designer or as a movie person, you have objects already, right? You've got everything. You've got guitars, you've got gunshots, you've got planes flying over and doing whatever, right? Everything is narrative driven for music and movies and games. So that stuff is already decided for you. But in music, specifically classical music or jazz or the stuff that I'm doing a lot of right now, I had to try to pick people's brains and think of different ways to do it. So, all right, so above all, we have to serve the project. We have to conceive of the project. So what I told you before is I wanted enhanced stereo. So I can't see so I may have to scroll through. Here we go. Here's my experiment. All right, so I have 2 albums coming out. One is a piano album. It's a long form. It's called, right now, it's temporary, called something about liminal spaces. The guy really likes liminal spaces. So it's like, I don't know. We'll get there. But the other one is a clarinet album. And it's with our clarinet professor, Andrea Vos Rochefort. And I had her on stage. I couldn't find a clarinet, so it looks like a violin. And I mic'd it like it was in stereo. Okay, so I mic'd a normal stereo thing. So I got a stereo pair in the front. I got some spot microphones. There was a big orchestra. It's all stereo, right? Then I put up 6 microphones. I put 2 at the back of the stage, 2 in the middle of the hall, and 2 in the back, at the very back of the hall. And they're all omnis. Okay? They don't belong with speakers. I am treating each one of those as a stereo object. So each one is stereo. So when I place them, I am going to place the stereo, I'm going to place it in between the front speakers and the mid speakers. So if we have our front speakers in the front and we have our mid speakers on the side, all of the stereo recording is going to go right in front of me. Then I can't point, but the ones that are all the way to the left, those will go in the speakers in the front. Then the ones in the middle will go slightly behind the speakers. The object will go slightly behind the speakers, behind your head, and then the back ones will go in the back. Now, my preliminary tests with that was it makes the stereo sound like stereo, but it also makes the immersive sound like you're in the hall, like you just stepped into the hall, but from where you would be listening as a listener. This is my experiment. I don't know if it'll be popular or if people will care or whatever. But what I'm doing is I'm trying to, instead of treating the microphones as in specific places, right? Instead of saying, okay, this is my mid microphone, my side microphone, my rear microphone, what I'm doing is I'm creating them as objects so I can put them anywhere. So I did a Dolby Atmos thing with a guy at Sweetwater over the summer. And some of the things that he does is he will actually take a modified version of like the vocal, like roll off some EQ, make it sound different, and he'll actually put it right behind the listener. Like he'll put it like right here behind your head. So you've got that, but then you have this thing right here, and it like gives you this like connection with the vocalist. I don't want to explain it too much because it's not mine, but that's one of those things that gave me the idea to try something like this, where I'm using the stereo pairs as objects. And that's really what I think, you should think about. Think in objects, not in static beds. Even though, please download that 3D Marco thing and listen to it, because it is really cool when you can hear it, right? But doing it, like if you're going to do pop music, things like that, think about your projects. How do you want them to be presented to the people? But also remember that if you're sending it, the people are also going to have to listen to it in stereo, right? So think about it that way. How can I make it be inclusive to everybody listening to it, all of the different things? So I have 2 minutes. So if you want to see more, tomorrow, 12:30, we're going to talk about how to make better music for content creation. It's a really big title. I should have made a smaller title. And then if you want to do some classical jazz production with Reclassical, which is a Reaper 3-point edit or 3 and 4-point editing system, and a source destination editor, which is free, come by and I have some examples to show you. Now that QR code goes to Twitter if you want to send me a tweet or whatever, but please email me for that link if you want it, right? And I will send it. I have the link, so if you email me today, I will send it out, okay? Assuming I have internet. So any questions for my 2 minutes that I have? Yes?
What's your go-to mic configuration when you're recording pianos?
When I record piano, well, it depends on the style. What style do you want?
Say pop.
All right, pop. I like to put spaced omnis right in front of the hammers, spaced 30 centimeters apart. So if this is the piano, I put them right there. Inside, I put them inside, because that gives me a real good, because you want the percussion of the piano. I don't like it when they're out for pop, because then it gives you all of these more frequencies, like a lot of low end, and you're going to end up cutting it out anyway because it'll muddy up the pop sound. But for classical music, I will put them out in front of the piano. Yes?
You mentioned VR setups and service. Is this technology able to take cues from something like the VR headset, which has position and tracking, and adjust sound in real time with what the headset is doing?
Yes. So the question was, can Atmos take cues from VR headsets and the such? Absolutely. In fact, if you own a pair of these and didn't realize you were listening to them in spatial audio the first time you do it, you turn your head and it's like the music stayed in one spot. It's like you're listening to a radio, and it's super uncomfortable. Like, I was like, why is everything changing? I'm like looking around thinking I'm having a stroke. And it's because they have sort of forced this thing, they're head tracking you, and they're leaving it. So yes, your objects can be tracked. Any other questions? Yes?
So whenever you're mixing
Mhm.
for Dolby Atmos, this is kind of a two-parter. Does panning work similarly to if you're working in stereo? And if so, how do you deal with the difference in amplitude that comes out of the speakers?
Okay, so the whole point, yes, it works the same as stereo in the sense that you are panning objects between different sets of speakers, right? So I like to think of it as being like stereo here, and then stereo here, and then stereo here, and stereo here. And you're putting it in between those speakers. And the difference in audio between those speakers is what helps you localize the object. And so when you set up your speakers, all of the speakers have to be set up so when you send a test signal through them, they all are at the same level at the listening position, so that when they are in the spot, that the only level differences will help you localize the audio. All right? One more question, then I got to wrap it up. Yep.
So what do you think about when you listen to like pop music, say like Marvin Gaye, what's going on, and you want to make it immersive? Like, so what about that song would you say, hey, this could benefit from this?
That's the hard part. Like, to me, I don't think it can, because it was conceived in stereo. I don't know what we can do other than put it in a space, right? I don't know what to do with that. But for pop music in general, it would be elements like putting them in rooms, or making things objects so they sit in particular spots, so that if you have head tracking go, you can actually feel them move around, or any kind of narrative effect. Because even in music, you want to think, the music is telling a story, and your Atmos mix is going to help that narrative. So whatever that narrative is what you'll do to try to enhance that. All right? So I got to wrap it up, but I'm happy to answer questions afterwards. I'm happy to answer questions before the next panel, or email me and I will answer all your questions. All right? Excellent. Thank you very much, everybody. I really appreciate it.